The local data company's latest shop vacancy report has been released to an eager audience at Freshfields in London. Entitled Good and Bad News, the report reviews the shop vacancy figures of over 700 town centres across the UK. While the national rate has remained stable, this hides a picture of wide regional differences, with the best performing centres being mainly in the south and with a significant majority of above average vacancy rates being found in the Midlands and in the north. Highly insightful, the report highlights the key structural issues driving the vacancy rates and explores the differences between healthy prime core centres and struggling secondary centres, with multiple retailers heading for the larger conurbations. Let's now consider the general outlook.
We've examined a whole raft of issues which are impacting town centres, be it from business rates, and it was advocated we should abolish business rates in town centres, to actually having a £500 levy per parking space and out of town centres. We've looked at planning, localism, and obviously the Mary Portas review to see what can be done.
The advantage of what the local data company produce is that it's a regular series of data, so you can actually see trends. And I guess none of us are really surprised that we are seeing the situation slightly worsening.
So what we're seeing at the moment in the retail restructuring space is something of the clash of two universes, where on the one hand you've got landlords expecting rent every quarter for the full period of the lease. But on the other hand, you've got real-life businesses who are managing cash on a daily basis against declining revenues.
The clear trend in the research is showing that the towns that have the highest vacancies are becoming more vacant. Vacant shops are a contagious disease.
It's been a very challenging period over the last 4 or 5 years. We've had out-of-town stores that have really challenged our town centre, and also we've had the challenge of the internet, which is becoming more and more of an issue as we go forward.
The recent Portas review recommended a combination of common sense and draconian measures to rehabilitate the UK high street. But many are calling for a more radical call to action, with flexibility being the buzzword. Big questions are also being asked of the landlords.
It's quite often the landlords from whom we need some real help in terms of rent reductions to rebase those rents to market.
People have got to wake up to the fact that there's probably too much retail in the UK, and that unfortunately a lot of the obsolete space is on the high street, which has become a very emotional problem.
The key word for us is flexibility. How can we actually work out what different uses to bring into town centres to use that property that otherwise is going to be sitting empty?
The LDC summit highlighted just how much the demise of the UK high street is an emotional issue, asking big questions particularly to local authorities and landlords against an incoming tide of online sales and competition from out-of-town retailing. But it was not all bad news. Northern towns like York and Harrogate are bucking the trend, and in the south there are numerous examples of centres with below 10% vacancy rates.
What we can learn, I think that you shouldn't let grow out of town too big. I mean, then in the end it will hurt your centres.
There are pressures across the board. There are pressures on cost with business rates, pressures on cost with rentals, and there are pressures from parking charges because councils themselves are having difficulties and having to recover money in pretty much any way they can.
Landlords and property owners are very much looking to maximise value. Retailers continue to minimise costs. In times of recession, that issue becomes much more of a conflict. I think we have to work together, or find a way of working together, to provide a much more vibrant economy within the high street.
It is a team game at the town centre and the high street, and it's therefore important that we get all of the relevant players together to discuss how we can actually look to start to move our town centres from a position of decline into a position of stability, and then we can move them forward.
Generally, it's been a great morning where a lot of issues have been discussed by a lot of very bright and involved people, both from Parliament all the way down through to the audience.